Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story. Chapter 3, Stab into the Heart. The command bridge of justice was immersed in a dim light while the blue and red control lights continually flashed. Paulina Romero stood relentlessly in front of the imposing front window, staring out into the infinite darkness of space. In front of their eyes, the imposing armada of the First Fleet unfolded majestically. Proud and powerful, the cruisers, destroyers, and corvettes arrayed in an almost perfect formation. Their enormous movements produced a gentle light that permeated the surrounding darkness and created an aura of the mysterious and fascinating. Romero licked her fists as the hour of truth came unstoppably near. At this crucial moment, it would be revealed whether all the tireless upgrading of the past few months had finally yielded fruit. The sound of the computer penetrated the room and suddenly ripped her out of her mind. The Admiral stood on the deck of her flagship, staring proudly at the fleet stretching out before her. The sun glittered in the infinite breadth of space as dust and asteroids orbited. Romero accepted with a slight nibble. Good. Keep track of the enemy Whale system. She turned to the navigation officer with an elegant turn, her eyes sparkled with determination. Put the sails forward with all your strength, Lieutenant, she whispered with a mixture of strength and passion. We are facing a battle to be fought. Yes, Admiral. With a thundering grumbling, the mighty armada set in motion. Romero squeezed his lips tightly and fixed the main screen with a dark look. They were determined to fight to the triumph, no matter what price it may demand. The days passed in an atmosphere of tense expectation. Romero unremittingly played war simulations and carefully analyzed each strategy. She was familiar with the enemy, knew his strengths and weaknesses to the smallest detail. And she knew her ship, her crew, like her own West Pocket. With a triumphant singing, the scanner finally announced its successful mission. Target system reached, Admiral. It sounded through the room. Romero ordered him to fall from the depths of the hyperspace. The sparkling stars again turned into tiny dots as the majestic fleet gently slipped into the normal space. Before them, the Whale system stretched out in all its gloomy glory. The three main components of this fascinating star system, a radiant yellow, a bright orange, and a seductively red dwarf star, circle around their center of gravity together. Each of them was accompanied by a handful of uninteresting planets, most of which were melted rocky planets without any atmosphere. However, Romero's attention was inevitably attracted by the massive spaceport, which was imposing in the orbit of the second planet. With its extensive defensive platforms and strategically placed armor positions, it resembled an unattainable fortress that kept any intruder in check. A dark shadow lay on Romero's face. She had long anticipated this confrontation, but now was the time to test the new weapon systems on heart and kidneys. Alarm level red. She cried with a voice through the icy air. All ships in attack formation. Their words permeated the silence like a thunderstorm and made the crew on board tremble. The tension was formally in the air, while the crew moved hectically to their positions. The captain stood firmly at the head of the ship and led her crew with determination and courage into the forthcoming battle. Everyone knew that this was a crucial moment that would decide whether to win or defeat. The bridge officers whispered eagerly, their gaze filled with determination. In the midst of the pulsating chaos, the red lights began to flash relentlessly, their fierce rays penetrating the darkness. A breath of tension lay in the air as the crew hurried to their battle stations with targeted steps. Romero, the admiral of the fleet, trusting in the captain of her flagship, let her gaze wander furiously over what had happened. At that moment there was no return. The directions were set, and fate was sealed. Come forward. She whispered with a bumpy determination. Her voice permeated the icy silence of tension on the bridge. A spark of courage lit up in the hearts of her fellow soldiers who had gathered around her. Together they rushed forward, ready to overcome all obstacles and reach their goal. The battle continued, and its effects lasted for days. Almoran's brave defenders repeatedly stormed their opponents in wave-like attacks, but the new spiral wind missile weapons proved to be devastatingly effective. With every moment passing, the Crusaders under Romero's lead unstoppably weakened the enemy squads. However, the enemy space station resisted all attacks. With an act of relentless courage, their powerful guns scattered through the ranks of the attackers, leaving flattening wounds. Romero had to deal with the loss of 2 destroyers and a corvette before her highly skilled technicians could find a solution. The arms officer addressed the admiral and announced with a voice trembling of pride and confidence, "Honorable Admiralty, It is my honor to inform you that, after analyzing the data, we have discovered the Achilles heel. The new targets are now being passed on. Romero accepted with a furious nibble. Very good. Then we take advantage of our newly acquired advantage. Shortly there passed some precious moments when Justice passed to attack with an almost unheard of elegance. The fleet opened synchro, the fire on the newly defined target parameters, and oversaturated, the Almoran Empire. Finally, the mighty guns of the space station, whose thundering grumbling had pervaded the silence of the galaxy, were silenced. A triumphal jubilation filled the venerable bridge of the spacecraft, as the certainty of its victory spread like an electrifying spark in the hearts of the brave crew. In this epic moment, which exploded the limits of the imaginable, the glow of triumph shone in the eyes of the heroes who had courageously confronted the unknown enemy. The land troops and the Navy committed themselves to securing the space station and thus building a bridgehead into the space of the Almorans. The Whaley system was now the foot in the door to the Almoran Empire. Romero took a deep breath and sat majestically in the admiral's chair that she held on the flag bridge. The first step was done. But their crusade had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, the glorious fleet of Romero traversed the borders of the Almoran Empire, hunting for one triumph after another. With their superior weapon systems, they conquered one outpost after another while their opponents were powerless. Even when they finally reached the mysterious black hole system, it only took a few hours for the enemy to surrender to their overwhelming power. They penetrated deeper and deeper into the core systems of the Almoran Empire, accompanied by their steps of determination and courage. On every liberated planet, the flags with the Reichsallkost rose majestically, proudly blowing in the wind of freedom. Romero, filled with a drunken sense of success, used every moment to the full. Soon, they would reach their goal, the Almorans' home world, the planet Alsor, at unprecedented speed. The vibrant anticipation filled their hearts as they prepared for the showdown. The great Almoranian flagship fleet, once considered unconquerable, would now be forced to kneel before them. A breathtaking spectacle of power and determination would unfold as they united their forces to triumph over their enemies. The tension was in the air as they prepared for the inevitable battle, ready to prove their passion and dedication to their homeland. Each soldier was ready to fight to the last breath and make the impossible possible. The time for prevention had come, and they would do anything to protect their loved ones from the tyranny of the Almorans. She leaned back comfortably in the soft chair and gently slid her eyelids onto each other. A satisfied smile played on her lips as she fulfilled her perfectly drawn-up plan. While Romero traveled with unstoppable triumph from system to system, Rita Griffin persisted tirelessly in her work to perfect the weapon systems. As soon as the production of the groundbreaking railguns had begun, they were already sinking back into the depths of their thoughts in order to forge plans for the next technological revolution. Listen, my dear companions, for I preach to you a glorious message. Her voice sounded in a bright morning through the holy halls of the laboratory. As soon as she spoke, a storm of excitement broke out, manifested in agitated murmuring and whispering voices. With a radiant smile, Rita announced, if the test series were to take a positive course, we could soon be able to develop miniature torpedoes. Hinata shrugged her forehead thoughtfully. Is it always the increased firepower that brings us salvation? She dared to say cautiously. A heavy sigh escaped Rita. My dear, we have to face the reality. The enemies will not go up in the air just because we politely ask them to do so. With an encouraging gesture, she gently knocked Hinata on the shoulder. Trust me, my love, for I am a master of my craft, she whispered with a mysterious voice. Hinata shut up. She trusted her girlfriend, but sometimes, there were doubts about her boundless urge for progress. But maybe Rita was right and these weapons were needed. Hinata ardently hoped that this was the case. An atmosphere of tension and mystery prevailed in the sacred halls of the Imperial Council. The most prestigious heads of the Empire had plunged into deep discussions about the fate of their nation. The walls were decorated with ancient writings and artifacts from past ages. Suddenly, a whisper broke the silence, and all eyes turned to Baran, a man of extraordinary wisdom and charisma. His gaze was firm, and his face determined as he took the floor. A profound meaning permeated the words, now leaving his lips. They carried hope and faith in a better future for their people. Baran spoke of the need to overcome old conflicts and work together to find a peaceful solution. His words encouraged those present to let go of their fears and doubts and to work for the reconstruction of their nation. With a majestic voice filling the room, the Minister for the Environment began to shape his words. Noble members, may I be permitted to submit a proposal?" This set a breath of tension in the air as curious rumblings slowly rose and attracted the attention of all present. In the depths of my thoughts, a breakthrough discovery is emerging that will shake the foundation of our ecological tradition and, at the same time, enrich it. An essential aspect that has so far been ignored rises like a majestic phoenix out of the ashes of ignorance: the ecological balance. With every breath we take in this world woven by man and nature, we realize that a harmonious balance between man and nature is crucial. The realization that our actions have a direct impact on the environment and vice versa opens the door to a new understanding of the need for sustainable coexistence. A moment of silence lay over the room as the members of the Imperial Chamber plunged into the depths of this bold idea. Nadine was the first to raise her voice. With a particular determination in her gaze, she said the words, "I agree. Nature must be preserved in its balance." A collective noise of approval permeated the crowd. Even the Divine Empress herself bowed her head in kind appreciation and approval. A radiant smile adorned Baran's face. "I thank you wholeheartedly. From this moment on, keeping the balance will be the highest priority," he solemnly announced. With a relieved sigh, he rested comfortably. Another step on the path of nature conservation has been taken. Nadine, with an encouraging smile, gave him new confidence. Together, they would strive unstoppably towards this noble goal. Months passed in which the fleet, with systematic precision, cleansed the border areas of all unrighteousness. With every day that passed, the homeland of the Almorans was getting closer and therefore also the opportunity for a glorious victory. The impatience grew in Paulina like wildfire as she counted the days that were to be left until the desired arrival finally came. When the sensors finally captured the Trinial star system, an electrifying voltage passed through the atmosphere. Time seemed to stand still as the brave men and women of the Reichsflot prepared for the forthcoming battle. It was the moment of truth when they could finally bring the enemy to their knees. The pulsing energy of determination flowed through their veins as they moved toward the unknown. With every breath, they felt the power of fate unfolding before them. The future of the galaxy was in their hands, and they were ready to go to the extreme to win. The battle would be epic, a battle for eternity that would enter the history books. But despite the enormous challenge and risk they took, they were determined to fulfill their mission. Because they knew that their courage and their willingness to sacrifice would not be in vain. "Combat ready!" cried Romero with a voice rolling like thunder over the battlefield. A wild stream of adrenaline flowed through her veins as if captured by a mighty stream of passion. A summoning sense of activity filled the bridge as the fleet, in an impressive attack formation, headed toward the vast defense station. Squadron by squadron spread and opened the fire with a thundering thunder. For a fleeting moment, Romero held the belief that success was near to reach. But the merciless cannons of the Almoranian armed forces swept through the ranks of the attackers with unfettered courage and cruelly decimated them. Romero pressed his teeth against each other and vowed that this would not be the defeat of the First Fleet. For days the bitter fight continued, a constant up and down, in which both sides suffered heavy losses. But Romero, steadfast and determined, didn't turn a single inch back. In her heart, she lorded the irresistible will to triumph or to fall. When the station finally announced its surrender, she felt a deep sense of relief. They had won, but the jubilation was overshadowed by a breath of grief in the face of the painful losses they had suffered. Now it was up to her to secure space sovereignty over the Almor home system until the ground offensive had secured the planet Alsor. 3 weeks had passed when the space troop carriers completed their journey on the surface of Alsor. In the middle of this fascinating setting, Saint General Nadine Heimer took responsibility for the invasion of Alsor. Her mission was of immense importance, as she was responsible for the mobile forces of the Empire. With a gentle and graceful movement, her shuttle slips into the secured bridgehead into an isolated valley. Here was the base camp set up for your forces. From here, your forces would gradually conquer the planet. Nadine felt her heart beating faster as she took a deep breath and prepared herself for the moment of truth. Now was the time to survive their baptisms and secure the planet without bloodshed on civilians. With a graceful gesture of greeting, she turned to her reception committee and gently bowed her head. "Lieutenant, I need a status report," said her gentle voice, sounding like music in the ears of the listeners. Everywhere around, the noise of fighting was heard as she uttered the words, "Where are the largest enemy forces located at the moment?" In front of her exchanged a look with his adjutants and gave himself a data pad. The lieutenant instructed Nadine to follow her into the command tent, where he showed her, on holographic cardboard, the distribution of the armed forces on the planet Alsor. With a bitter voice, he spoke the words that could not deny the truth. Saint General Heimer, as you see, the armed forces of the Almorans are massed mainly in the urban areas to lure us into street fighting. In the first hours of the space landing operation, we bombarded the largest buildings of Almoran armed forces, mainly with tactical nuclear weapons. However, the Imperial capital is on Alsor, laid out like a maze, and we want to avoid unnecessary civilian casualties, so we will have to accept losses. Nadine looked him deep in the eyes. The Empire of Kasach will put the planet under military administration once we have gained control. And so until we have either captured the Almoran Empress or reached a goal acceptable to us. But we will not commit any unnecessary atrocities against the civilian population, because my mother and our rules of war prohibit us from doing so. The lieutenant let his penetrating gaze glide over them as he suspiciously mapped them. His eyes revealed a deep skepticism as he slowly bowed his head. A breath of hesitation lay in the air when he finally said, "With the permission of Saint Generalin, but we are formally sitting here in a killer hornet nest. An Almoraner can rip out a dozen of our soldiers if they are not equipped with armor-breaking weapons. Formally speaking, we are fighting here against running cliffs." With an anxious sigh, Nadine released the breath from her lungs. It was a moment of truth that filled her heart with hope. Because, although it would take time, this first step was crucial. It was only with this openness of your officers with no shredded data that she could lead this operation to a collective success. It took her a few more weeks, with her brave space landing troops, to full peace in Alsor. As Nadine advanced her operation, on Alsor, the command came to the first fleet to pacify other star systems of the Almoran Empire. The imperial family of the Almoran Empire was still busy recruiting new troops and preparing for a counterattack against the Kingdom of Kasach. Peace was not foreseeable then and would require further efforts by the Space Forces and the Mobile Army. Paulina Romero recognized the crucial importance of soothing the Almorans or establishing a buffer empire that should pursue the same ideology as the Empire of Kasach. For this purpose, she commissioned xenologists who were in the occupied territory to search for suitable personalities among the Almoran, to whom responsibility could then be transferred over the newly established buffer empire. Her sight was lost in the depths of space, where the stars shone in all their glory. In the infinite vastness out there, no doubt, the next enemies were already looming, ready to forge their dark plans. But as long as Paulina was alive, she would resolutely oppose you and protect the kingdom with your lives. Because that distinguished Paulina, their unwavering determination to fight for their beloved home planet was characterized by unparalleled strength. Even if all the stars of the vast galaxy seemed to stand against them, they would never give in to the pressure. Kasach could count on her unconditionally, while Paulina threw a fierce smile into the impenetrable darkness. A game of fate began, with only two options, victory or defeat. I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date.